Welcome back, guys. Today we're going to continue our NFL predictions with Week 3. Last week, I had a pretty good week making picks. I went 12-4, which put my season total of 21-11. And last week, we saw a lot of comebacks and games that just ended in Y. I don't know, it was a very weird week. But anyway, let's jump into these predictions. And we're going to start off with Thursday Night Football with the New York Football Giants taking on the San Francisco 49ers. The 49ers won their quote-unquote home game against the Rams. I think they won by like 10 points. They won 27-20. And as for the Giants, they were down bad against the Cardinals until Daniel Jones made a rally. And Cardinals realizing the fact that they're tanking, that helped out their comeback. But what did it cost them? It cost them Saquon Barkley, who will be out this game with a sprained ankle. So, yeah, this one's actually pretty easy to make. The 49ers are going to win. I'm going to pick them to win. And I project Brock Purdy to have a very big day throwing the football. Next we have is the Tennessee Titans traveling to Cleveland to take on the Browns. Titans, they got to come from behind victory over the Los Angeles Chargers. And as for Cleveland, they lost to the Pittsburgh Steelers, and there was a lot of criticism for Deshaun Watson's performance. He took 6 sacks, and he had 2 very costly turnovers that led to Steelers scores. And many people are questioning that, did he rob Cleveland? Or Cleveland was dumb enough to give him all that guaranteed money? Well, in this game, I do think Cleveland's going to bounce back. I got them winning this one. I know Nick Chubb, he's gone for the season. I hate that happened to him. Prayers to his recovery. But I think with their defense, I think they could bounce back and get a win here. The defense last game was not the problem. Next we have is the Atlanta Falcons taking on the Detroit Lions. The Falcons, they're 2-0. I don't think I ever had that written down at the start of the season. But they did run over the Green Bay Packers at home. As for the Detroit Lions, they suffered a heartbreaking overtime loss to the Seattle Seahawks, excuse me. And for this game, this is one of those games that could sneak up. This is one of those games that will sneak up on you because you don't know what's going to predict. I'm actually going to go with the Detroit Lions to bounce back and get a win over the Falcons. I just think they're a little more talented than Atlanta, and I can't believe I'm saying that about Detroit. Next, we have, speaking of Green Bay, the New Orleans Saints traveling to Green Bay to take on the Packers. The Saints, they're 2-0 as they got a win over the Carolina Panthers on Monday Night Football. And as for Green Bay, they suffered a loss despite a first 3-quarter good performance by Jordan Love. For Green Bay, this is their first home game of the season. And even though I normally would take Green Bay, I'm actually going to lean towards the New Orleans Saints because that defense is legit. Because the first 2 games, they frustrated the Titans offense. And then last Monday night, they frustrated the Carolina offense, which their offense is offensive. But I'm going to roll with the New Orleans Saints to win on the road. Next we have is the Denver Broncos traveling to Miami to take on the Dolphins. The Broncos, they blew yet another lead. That hence why their logo's upside down. 2 winnable games that they blew. They lost. Actually, they had a Hail Mary at the end of the game, but only failed on a blatant pass interference 2-point conversion that wasn't called. For Miami, 2 road wins. Last week they got a Sunday night win over the New England Patriots, and they showed the world that they can actually win by running the football. Raheem Mostert had a really good game last week. And with this being the Dolphins' first home game of the year, and it's going to be a 1 o'clock home game, spells doom for the Broncos. I got the Miami Dolphins winning in pretty convincing fashion, too. Sorry, Broncos, you got 0-3. Maybe if you wouldn't blow those leads, I'll be speaking different of you. And speaking of teams that continue to blow leads and disappoint me, We have the Los Angeles Chargers traveling to Minnesota to take on the Vikings. The Chargers, man. They just love to charge at themselves out of games. Another winnable game lost by the Tennessee Titans. Meanwhile, the Minnesota Vikings, they got they lost to the Philadelphia Eagles because of their own turnovers, and that's literally the only problem with the Vikings. If they will stop turning the ball over, who knows what good they could come. Now for the Chargers, if they drop this game and if they drop next week's game, 0-4, Brandon Staley could be gone, which would be good news for the Chargers because he's the biggest problem on that team. But anyway, picking a winner, I'm going to go ahead and pick the Minnesota Vikings to win. I do think they're going to clean up those turnovers. They've had the extra 10 days of rest to do that. I also believe that Justin Jefferson, he's going to have a monster game against the Chargers. Next we have is the New England Patriots traveling to New York to take on the Jets. Patriots, another home loss, this time in the hands of the Miami Dolphins. And it wasn't that and to be honest, the Patriots this is the second game in a row that the Patriots didn't play a bad game. They had a good, solid game plan. It just wasn't enough. As for the Jets, yeah, they got destroyed by the Dallas Cowboys. And the Zach Wilson problem has came back and haunt them again. So, yeah, I think this one's pretty easy for me to choose. I'm going to pick the New England Patriots to get their first win of the season. And even if you look back on my offseason predictions, I actually had the Patriots winning their first game right here. Or second, it was one of those two. But regardless, I had the Patriots winning on the road. I think their defense will find a way to find in the end zone. They're gonna make Zach Wilson's day a living nightmare. And Jets, I kind of feel bad for y'all. Next we have is the Buffalo Bills taking on the Washington Commanders in Washington. The Commanders, they're 2-0. I bet y'all scriptwriters didn't wrote that down, but here you go. And last week they had a very strong performance in Denver against the Broncos. For the Bills, they bounced back and played almost a near perfect game against the Las Vegas Raiders as they blew them out. And because the Washington's 2-0, this will be a great test for them to see where they're at as a franchise. I could see them winning this game, but I do think the Bills have a lot more talent than the Commanders. I think Josh Allen will find a way to get his targets open. He's going to make plays on his own. This is going to be that Josh Allen game. I got the Bills winning. Next we have is the Houston Texans taking on the Jacksonville Jaguars. Both teams are coming off losses. The Houston Texans lost to the Indianapolis Colts, and it's pretty much clear as day that they're not a good football team. They're not good at all. And for Jacksonville, they couldn't find the end zone against the Kansas City Chiefs, as the Chiefs' defense of all things shut down the Jaguars' offense. But for this game, because Houston is that inept in football, I got the Jaguars winning at home. I think they're going to bounce back and put up a better showing in this game than they did last week. Next we have is the Indianapolis Colts traveling to Baltimore to take on the Ravens. The Colts, they got a win over Houston. They're 1-1, but what did it cost them? Anthony Richardson is in concussion protocol. We do not know if he's going to play this game or not. Meanwhile, for the Ravens, yeah, they're 2-0, but they're an injured 2-0. Again, injuries has been killing this team for the past 3 years, and this year's no different. As this time, Odell Beckham is nursing an ankle injury, and Lamar Jackson is facing some ailment too. I just don't know what it is yet. So, but because I'm very unsure of Anthony Richardson's status. I'm going to pick the Ravens to win because one thing they are doing is finding ways to win games, whether it's good defense, good offense, or a combination of both. So I'm just going to go ahead and pick the Baltimore Ravens to win. Next we have is the Carolina Panthers traveling to Seattle to take on the Seahawks. Well, Carolina, their Monday night game was offensive to the word offense. Their offense couldn't get anything going against the New Orleans Saints. And Bryce Young, he pretty much looked lost out there on the football field. I hate to say it. Meanwhile, Seattle, they had a come from behind win over Detroit, an overtime victory where Tyler Lockett had a very strong game. Now, if you recall, last year, Carolina went into Seattle and got a W, and it was thanks to their running game. But this time, given that these two franchises are in different places, I'm going to pick the Seattle Seahawks to win this football game. I think Kenneth Walker is going to have a pretty good game. Next we have is the Chicago Bears taking on the Kansas City Chiefs in Kansas City. The Bears lost again, and if I'm correct, that's loss number 12 straight. And there are beginning to be some rumblings about Justin Fields not being the long-term solution at quarterback. He's just not a winner. I hate to say it. You can put up good stats, but if you don't win games, them stats ain't gonna matter, Fields. Meanwhile, for the Chiefs, they got a bounce back win over the Kansas City Chiefs. Over the Jacksonville Jaguars, where Travis Kelce, Chris Jones, they returned to the lineup and they made big impacts. And with this being a home game, yeah, I got the Chiefs winning pretty easily here. Next we have is the Dallas Cowboys taking on the Arizona Cardinals. And that takes us to Sunday Night Football, where we're going to have an old school classic rivalry under the lights. The Pittsburgh Steelers taking on the Las Vegas Raiders. The Steelers, honestly, I don't know how they won that game on Monday night. I really don't know. Defense, a Nick Chubb injury, and Deshaun Watson being pretty poor on the field. Meanwhile, the Raiders got blown out by the Bills. There was nothing good to say about their performance. They basically just threw away the tape and moved on to the next. They're going to move on to the next one. But for this game, I don't know how the Steelers going to fluke their way out of this. You know, every year they have one fluke win. And if you recall last year, the Steelers had a late rally against the Raiders. And that was the Franco Harris game. I feel like this year is more like a sequel. But I got the Raiders to win at home. I don't know why, but I do believe that Jimmy G is going to find a way to get a win here, and I'm not sold on, and maybe because I'm not sold on the Steelers offense. For the second week in a row, we have a doubleheader on Monday night. The Philadelphia Eagles traveling to Tampa Bay to take on the Bucks. Both teams are 2-0, with the Eagles beating the Minnesota Vikings on Thursday Night Football, and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers beating the Bears on regular Sunday. Now, honestly, no lie, I almost went with the Bucks with this game. Only because even though everyone written the Bucks off for this year, they still got a good defense. And meanwhile, but because of that extra rest, unfortunately, I'm going to have to pick the Philadelphia Eagles to win on the road because I think they had a little more time to rest, recover, regroup than the Buccaneers. But I do hope for a pretty good game on Monday night. And finally, the other Monday Night Football game we have the Los Angeles Rams traveling on to Cincinnati to take on the Bengals. And we all know what happened when the last time these two teams met. It was in the Super Bowl, which the Rams won thanks to a Cooper Kupp late touchdown. Luckily, Cooper Kupp will not be playing in this game, Bengals, so that's good news for you. But the Bengals, they have more questions than answers. They're 0-2. Joe Burrow, he has admitted he has not been healthy. He's basically playing hurt. Meanwhile, for the Rams, yes, they're 1-1, but they are playing very hard for Sean McVay. I do believe that they're going to be a sneaky team in this. They're going to be like a very sneaky team in the NFL. They're going to steal wins and make all the contenders around the league frustrated when they play them. And so for this game, my pick is basically going to depend on the health of Joe Burrow. If he plays this game, I am going to go with the Bengals bouncing back and getting their first win. But if he doesn't play or I have second doubts, I will flip my pick to the Rams. So those are my predictions for week 3. Tell me what y'all think in the comments below. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.